through a
super PAC.
a separate company and you're
Four different LLCs.
I gave 50,000 to this person.
Hello, everyone.
Let's see if Charles.
Hello.
Seeing that it's 6 PM, I would like to call this meeting of the Lake Elmo Economic Development Authority to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. I hope everyone has had a chance to look at them. I'd like to make the motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting as they were submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Thank you. That passes. Okay, the first document that we'll talk about is the work plan for the coming year. And I would like to ask Community Development Director Stop to go ahead and present it.
Okay, good evening. We have the 2026 work plan. We presented this, I believe, at the last meeting, asked for input. So as you can see, for our mission statement, our goals have remained the same. The work plan items have changed slightly. So the market, the city-owned 180 acres, we finished the ULI TAP process, so we want to begin that, and we're going to cover that tonight after. Purchase agreement for the former fire station and parks building. Just so you know, the appraisal is ongoing, the survey is happening to the title work, so hopefully we'll have a purchase agreement by the first quarter. We're still waiting on the brownfield, the environmental will come back. We've been
That's
asking-
what I was just gonna ask, is phase 2 still not done yet?
We've asked a couple times, hopefully a week or two, or any day now is basically what we're looking at with that, so. But we have explored brownfield grants in case there is a cleanup. And we can discuss that more if that comes up, because that may affect the purchase price, and we can figure that out. Identify and evaluate city-owned properties and develop a disposition plan. Create plans for city-owned properties, consider analyzing properties for purchase. That came up last time at the EDAs. I think it's just being flexible in case properties come up. We can address them and talk about them at the meeting and put a plan together. Just so you know, we talked about the city-owned properties. This is city-owned, watershed, county. What we plan to do is basically go to the GIS and pull everything that's in the GIS file, the parcel information from the county, and just go through that and create a plan. We're gonna go to the EDA, the Planning Commission, obviously the council, but just to see where that fits best, if there's any property acquisition. We met with Valley Branch last week, I believe, or the week before, about property that they're acquiring that they would like to donate to the city. So this comes up from time to time. Create and implement a plan for Old City Hall. So that'll be interesting. We are gonna come back with just kind of a parking plan. I reached out, I'm gonna be meeting with a broker to get a BPO, broker price opinion on it, and then also a commercial contractor just to see what a basic remodel would take, just to get some pricing options there. Evaluate the landfill so we can develop it as an asset for the city. Currently, we will do a workshop early next year. I'm waiting on Excel to get back to me. They said that they will have someone reach out to me about the power purchase agreement, that option. We had discussed that in the past, that potentially without paying out the bonds, you could move forward with a public entity, and they could move forward to actually install a solar facility, but I'm waiting to hear back from them. So I'd really like to hear from them before we do the workshop and provide options. If they say they can't do it, then that's when we're gonna go back to.
Okay, so at this point, you're not sure when the workshop would be held?
I haven't said it yet. I think we probably, I would like to give them some time. We'll do a workshop in February, hopefully February, March.
In February or March timeframe? Okay.
What I'm hoping, just kind of following it, and we've talked about it for over a year now, is that Excel does have a pathway to make it happen. So hopefully they'll be able to.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll talk to you offline about it a little bit.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then we just streamlined some of this. The communications effort, working with Kathy, just working to improve our website, social media, keeping our outreach material up to date. We updated our community development projects page, and that's something that is much easier to update now, and we're gonna continue to make improvements to that. Share communications with Stillwater Chamber of Commerce, doing that. And then we've started a comprehensive list of businesses that we continue to update. And then also collaborate with Washington County CDA to explore and share resources for businesses. I went to a meeting with, a leadership meeting, and I think they have some grants that are interesting outside of the CDA too, that the CDA works with other groups. So I'd like to talk to them, reach out to them, and maybe they could come and just present to the EDA everything that they do. And then obviously we talked about updating the EDA handbook. We want to just make sure that that's more of a housekeeping item. Is there anything else?
Yeah,
Any questions or?
Yeah, go back to create and implement plan for Old City Hall.
Okay.
I think there might have been a comment on this last time, but I don't recall for sure. But there are continuing rumors that Fury is thinking about or entertaining opportunities to sell. Is it possible to include in that plan the potential for marketing property to be, that's well, it's really not contiguous to Fury, it's contiguous to school, right? But that whole area, then, the school thing is up in the air, I guess, a year
So-
from yesterday's proposed closing date with a lot to be done between them. What are the chances that there could be a more holistic view of developing that area?
So it's possible. We discussed that as an option at the workshop. Also, I talked to the broker after the workshop. The school site is, I believe, I believe they're under contract, but they're under contract with the Valley Community Center to move forward. So the community center is doing their due diligence for the next month to see if it's financially feasible to basically own, operate a community center at that location. One of the challenges is VMX. VMX requires housing, so that they most likely would have to look at bringing in a housing developer on a portion of the site, or the Fury site would have more housing. There's different ways that can be done, so that's been communicated, and I think there's opportunity there. I mean, I've talked to the person that works for the community center for over a year now, so I think there's opportunity to do that. So
So
it
there
could be a
might
part.
be a fit for the old City Hall property with the community center development, maybe?
I think what we're looking at is potentially a parking lot for the city hall.
Yeah.
But the benefit to them is that they get to use it as density, to increase density.
Okay.
And then potentially we could work out a deal that benefits both the city and them.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further comments on this presentation?
Question on the brownfield grants, is it our burden to be looking for those, or is it the potential buyers?
It's the buyer, but I believe through the county, there's a program with MPCA that makes it easier for us to work with the buyer, since it is still city-owned, that we would be eligible for funds. I haven't looked into that in several months, but that's what I was told months ago.
Gotcha, thank you.
I like the idea of having a comprehensive list of Lake Elmo businesses, which is updated regularly. I think that's an important thing to have out there, at least on our website or someplace where it's readily accessible to people that are looking to shop locally.
What's the thought on that as to what is the source of truth? Like, what are the ways to, obviously the Chambers of Commerce for Woodbury and Stillwater both have our businesses, but who truly has a single source of truth? Like, I'm thinking Department of Revenue has stuff, but only when they have a certain type of business. The county has certain things, but there really isn't a single place where we can just go and purge their data.
There isn't. I mean, we don't have a business license process, so where I used to work, we monitored that. So we had everybody, right? And everybody had to come get a license. We don't do that. So it's just really difficult. We have change of use, so we process zoning, certificates of zoning compliance. So anytime there's a change of use, we'll capture that. We also want to talk to anybody coming in, and usually they communicate with us and fire, just in case they're making any kind of changes to their building, whether it's restaurant to restaurant. We've seen that where something's changed or they do a minor renovation, but then they need to add something, it's good for them to talk to us and fire to make sure that they're getting the correct permits. But to answer your question, I'm not aware of a list, and we've discussed it, that is easy for us to access.
And even our utility billing system, even for the DBA, only works for those who are on water or sewer, so that doesn't get us the whole list either. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of ways to help and make it easier on the staff side for that.
Can I add? I think we have a list going right now from previous EDA. I'm wondering if anyone on the EDA knows what they did to start that list. Maybe Nina or Tony.
The one that we got from the county?
Is that where it came from? I just,
Yeah.
I stumbled across it, so that's the,
Yep, and there were a lot of dead ends on that one.
okay, thanks.
You know, just as a point of clarification, it says is the idea to have a comprehensive list of all businesses that have physical locations in the city? Or would that, I mean, there's got to be a lot of businesses where people are operating out of their homes. We're not considering those, correct or incorrect?
I mean, we do process home businesses, so we are considering more brick and mortar though, actual stores. I think that's what we're more or less interested in, so we were able to share that information with residents.
To make it easier so you're not having to go find people, could you put something, just a little blurb in the fresh? Have a new business, anything, and just have it ongoing, and you have a form that they can just submit if they want to be listed?
We can do that.
The purpose isn't for any like government documentation per se, it's more for marketing, and hopefully we can have folks opt in or flag changes and.
I think
that
it's-
would serve its purpose. I like that idea. I mean,
I think it's certainly within the purview of the EDA to try to improve the situation of businesses in the city. So, yeah, to have a list of businesses that are public facing, you know, that would deal with local residents. We don't need somebody who's based in St. Paul but wants to get work here. We're looking for local, you know, make a list of local businesses that would want to do business with local people.
yeah, and if there's anything us as an EDA can do to make sure they feel connected into the city, their voice is being heard, whether or not they want, if they just said, hey, I want to be left alone, that's fine, but just having a connection into city council, into EDA matters, I think that's powerful. It's something that honestly drove me to, you know, commit my time to the EDA. I think that's pretty interesting stuff when you can have a real impact and a voice for businesses in the city.
I think that's a good point. If there's no further comment, we have a motion suggested here, and to recommend approval of the 2026 EDA work plan as presented by staff.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on it? Hearing nobody, I would like to go and ask all who approve this motion.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the next item is the 180 acres tap. So I just wanted to, they gave a presentation at council. Some of you were there. I just wanted to kind of go through that presentation and talk about next steps. Also, if you have questions, comments, you can stop me and we can just talk about it. But let's see. All right, so I've taken portions of their presentation. And this is just, I'll skip some of it, but development opportunities in Lake Elmo. You can see here's the site next to the Public Works building. It's 180 acres, it's 3 parcels. And we provided them with questions. So we wanted to know what land uses would generate the most taxes, what land uses are the most feasible in the current condition, the current market. there any development trends that you're seeing for comparable properties? What are the pros and cons of dividing the site or selling it as one? Should we offer it in phases? Is now a good time to sell the property? Anything related to the market? Those were questions we asked them. Does the timing affect how it should be sold? We also talked about economic incentives, the typical ones like TIF, tax abatement. And then what kind of requirement strategies could the city put in place to encourage community participation in the development process? So our group of panelists, the top two panelists we worked with for a few months to kind of get this together, and we'll kind of go through the process. And then we had other people that have backgrounds in real estate development, planning, and then public finance. So that process for a few months, we gathered all the briefing materials. As some of you know, you went through the process that this site was supposed to be developed. It wasn't, so we wanted all the background information that we could, all the land use, zoning. We were able to put that in a folder, and they were able to review that, the two main panelists, to kind of start that process. We had a tour with the panelists and then with the group, and then they interviewed almost 30 stakeholders. So we had a stakeholder list that was generated. I know the EDA helped create that list. And then there was more discussion at the reception. The panel made recommendations and a report. The report was sent yesterday. We will be forwarding that to you. So just, it's very similar to the presentation, but if you have any comments, let us know. So the stakeholder meetings were with city staff, building owners, managers, developers, architects, brokers, lenders, advocates, community organizations. And you can see here, these are the three parcels. This is how they were referred to, 1, 2, 3. We'll go in a little bit of detail. You can see this is the guidance. The main thing to point out here, I believe, is just that most of it is guided business park, except for a small percentage that's commercial. And they had a really small area that was, not them, but prior, we do, low density residential in a buffer zone to the north. The infrastructure, just that there's rail, both between the first and second parcel. There's also overhead power lines, and there is a utility easement. This red line going through here is, I believe, a gas pipeline. So those are things to consider. So the guiding principles, this is what they heard after meeting with everyone, is that they want to maximize the community benefit, maintain image and character. They talked about the gateway. It's a gateway to Lake Elmo. Establish design and performance standards. Basically, the developers who come in should know exactly what the city is looking for. Preserve future flexibility. It's such a large site. Advance sustainability and resilience. Ready and responsive to the market. Build internal capacity. Integrate open space and trails. And effectively manage transitions. So the site's contribution to the city. Fiscal, economic benefits. We're looking at taxes, daytime population. Can it attract people, jobs, retail, housing options? What should the housing options look like? The gateway presence, the green space network, and then the village. How does it connect? Is it close enough to kind of, it's different, but how can we kind of blend it? And looking at trails, obviously roads. So the study questions themes were market feasibility, the local benefit in terms of like the tax benefit, community role and community engagement, and then the phasing and timing. So this is what they came up with essentially. Parcel 1 would be almost a business park, light industrial, and then parcel 2, the same kind of development, and then parcel 3 would be a mix of commercial and housing. Some of it lower density, higher density, medium density, and higher density apartments. The access, we'll talk about that a little bit, but the access points were discussed with the county in the past. They look like I wouldn't say pre-approved, but we need to work with them to make sure that that's where the intersections can occur. We feel pretty confident that a roundabout or intersection could go into the site between the two on 34th Street. So that was good to hear. And then this is just an overview of the site. They wanted to just talk about retail, kind of show what it could look like. We have a little Explorers across the street. But the industrial, talking about more of a light industrial. We see some of this along Hudson. The big question brought up is, do you want to consider heavy industrial? Typically what that means is outdoor storage of any kind, materials, trucks. So it's just something to consider moving forward. And then multifamily, they brought in these kind of 4-story multifamily buildings to talk about the precedent. And then townhouses and small single family. So one of the things we talked about is smaller lot single family that could be owner occupied, and it could be sold at a lower price point than what we typically see here. And we have a lot of flexibility since we own the site, so it may be the one opportunity where we can kind of guide what we'd want to see and consider housing at different price points and design. This just shows connectivity. I know there were some comments that I saw. The lines kind of in the back were just trails, potential trails that could be connected to Sunfish Lake Park and the new 76 acres. So market feasibility, this is just at a really high level. Just want to talk about what they're discussing, but site 1 would be about 230,000 square feet of warehouse. And after it would be built out, estimated at 27 million. The second one is 500,000 square feet, 67 million. And then combined, where you have 5 retail locations, 56 townhouses, 17 single family, 44 mini single family, and 230 apartment units. That group would be around 94 million. For me, what's important here, what I like about this is that we can use this moving forward, and we will use this moving forward, like in terms of our pricing. So it's apples to apples when we talk about what we think. If anything, we want to change as a city. We may not want as many apartments and that sort of thing. We'll talk about that in a second.
What's a mini single family? Is that like a tiny home or?
No, it's actually a full-size home, and
Yeah.
it's a 40-foot lot by 4,800 square feet. We have this in our medium-density
Okay.
districts, and they're usually, they are required to be rear-loaded. So it's a way that you can create single-family housing and create a lot of value that,
These are
without
just-
creating like the units to create that value.
Are these like slab on grade type?
They don't
homes
have to
too?
be, they can be
Okay.
basement.
Got
We
it.
have some numbers too, kind of we can kind of talk through that. But I would say, think of it as like a house in the cities that, you know, is a little bit older,
Yep.
but with better alley layouts in terms of like.
Got it. So
size
the
and-
garage might be in the backyard?
Yeah. So
Alley.
Wildflower is another example of those, but those are obviously larger lots.
Yep, got it.
And it's a silly question, this is all proposal, like this is
It's all
what they
proposed.
came up with.
Yeah, we'll get into the next steps too, because it's not like, this is exactly, we're going to have to go through our community engagement process. This is just the beginning of starting the conversation, getting some real numbers. We wanted someone to tell us, like, you can do this project next year too. Like, there are people wanting to build this in like Elmo. You know, the question is like, how much industrial could be built, right? So
Yeah.
it was almost 100% industrial. So we just wanted to ask those questions too. So if you see here, this is industrial only, and this is a blend of residential industrial. And what you can see is the taxable market value is pretty much the same, and the city taxes are the same. But the annual tax value is a lot higher for industrial, and that has to do with the fiscal disparity tax. So that just came up that you would pay more with an industrial only. So that's just based on the existing land use. So they just wanted to show that. This is a lot harder to read, but if you see in the report, this is just on, the 2 pink sides are just the slide before, kind of side by side. The next is saying if you have $50 million of value, you could create that with 63 low-density single-family. You could create that with 83 smaller lot, owner-occupied single-family. But to create 50 million of value in high-density residential, you need to create 172 units. And then commercial, 200. This is just 200,000 square feet and 500,000 square feet. So this is kind of giving you that comparison, and you could read through that. It's pretty interesting what we saw. One thing that wasn't brought up, and I think it should be brought up, is that, and I've seen this in a slide from the county CDA, is that for every dollar paid for residential property, the amount of services is about $1.20 requested by the homeowner, whereas commercial industrial is like 30 cents. So that's something to just consider too, is you know, that was brought up as a question, but it's not answered, but I have seen that in a presentation. And then that blue section is if you had 100 acres, how many units could you fit realistically? So 255 low density, 425 medium density, and then 850 high density residential. So you can see that you have 425 medium density compared to 850 high density, but the value is actually higher for the medium density single family. So you're creating home ownership opportunities, fewer units, you know, more tax revenue. So it's interesting to look at this. Financial tools, this came up with public finance and with Tammy Amdam. So just high level, the third one, the land write down, is kind of the easiest process when a city owns the property. It doesn't have to go through the whole TIF tax abatement process. So it's just something to consider that the city has it. Also talked about just, you know, bonding, this will come up, but bonding the sewer. If we want to do the sewer improvements now to make the site more development ready, that is something that we could approach through bonding. So community role, this is basically, we want to have a robust community engagement and just see what people have to say about the plan and what is proposed through ULI. And that we'll get to next steps pretty soon here and kind of discuss this more. Phasing and timing, this has to do with finances too. How much money does the city want to spend to accelerate the timing? That's kind of guidelines, want to have clear design guidelines. Kind of skip some of this, but the sewer connection, we have the lift station in Oakdale. 2021, the cost was $893,000, 30% cost share from City of Lake Elmo. We have about 500 rec units that was discussed with engineering. And this is the implementation scenarios. Essentially, the for sale sign is find a broker and just kind of hand it over to them after we do our community engagement. What makes a lot of sense, and we discussed this with the TAP group, was option 2, which is try to install sewer. The sewer needs to go under the rail. It's going to be challenging to do so. So that seems to be the path, but you know, that's up to discussion too going forward. I will say the challenges of building a road is the sewer basically needs to run parallel with the tracks. So it's, you kind of have to, you know, is that where the road should go? Who knows like where the road should go until a developer comes in. Just something interesting too that was discussed with the train tracks. If there's a spur there and you need to run the sewer, I mean, you really don't want to run the sewer under the tracks, probably wouldn't even allow it. So we have to talk to we need to talk to engineering more and then also Union Pacific. So next steps, showing public engagement, railroad crossing initiation, sewer extension, curb cuts with the county, policy framework. This really has to do with updating comp plan and building it. If we were to build this out, we would need comp plan amendments. So this is just our couple of slides moving forward. Just, you know, the big question now after this, is this really what we want to build, right? So what kind of development should be built? What infrastructure is needed? Do we have a budget for it moving forward? What do the residents want to see here? Does the preferred land use align with the current comp plan? Do we need to amend it? And then what does the market support? Next steps for us, just, you know, since this has ended, we're going to move forward with working on kind of the technical and the research, and that's discussing water, sewer, rail, trying to find a contact at Union Pacific to go over rail spur options. That may not be an option, right? So we want to be able to eliminate that before we go forward with community engagement. Issues with sewer near or under the tracks, access and streets. So we need to meet with the county to discuss access points, Valley Branch with stormwater, and then the AUAR, just getting that updated. Also talking to land brokers, what's the sewer approach going to look like, and then working with the CDA, maybe with site selectors, see what assistance they can provide. And then for us, creating an engagement process, how we're going to inform the residents, discuss priorities. We're talking about having basically, you know, question to the EDA is you want to have maybe a public hearing at EDA to kind of work through some of the issues. I think we want to have more of a town hall first, but putting together an engagement plan and communication plan, and letting, we'll work on that through the EDA. Create a project website, maybe do surveys, we could do that online, to ask specific questions, and then working with Kathy on communication strategies and creating a timeline. And then posting FAQs on the website, and just having a website that people can go to and get updates. So this is our basic timeline, because I know that's the main question, what are we doing next, right? So December through February, just reviewing research topics. February, prepare another presentation with update to the EDA, also to the Planning Commission. Maybe make some recommendations to the council in March. I think one of the things that we need to talk to the council and everybody is do we want to start this process of running the sewer under the tracks to start development as soon as possible on the other parcels? We would like to start community engagement in April and launch the webpage and communication strategy. And then April, May, also meet with the Planning Commission, EDA. That could be where we have public hearings and meetings. Then in June, create the marketing materials, brand the site, and then hopefully we can launch the marketing earliest in June for parcel 1. Now, we could also, maybe October, market parcel 2. If the sewer is brought to 34th Street, after that, market the residential section or parcel 3. I do think we'll have strong residential demand, so if that gets set up and we can get sewer to that site, we'll have people that would want to build. So this is our first timeline. So really, I just wanted to bring this as an update. I know some of you, maybe you haven't seen the presentation online. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments too about the process, really it's just to hear from you.
I have a couple of questions. If you could back up to the slide number 37, I believe it is.
This one?
Can you say what AUARBNM means?
Okay, so that's basically the environmental for the site, and Bolton and Menk would be updating that. That's the idea there, is just to do that. So we have an AUAR, it's existing, and we can renew it, essentially. And that would be the process, it'd be cheaper to do that.
Okay, thank you. And if you go back to 33, this looks like the crux of the matter here as to how we're going to proceed with this. From my own point of view, I like the idea of the lower ones where the city has more control for a couple of reasons. One is that I believe that it would make sense for Lake Elmo to develop the capacity within the city staff to deal with these kind of things, which will serve us in the future as well as for this project. And the other, I think, is that from the point of view of control of what happens there, if the city essentially zones each parcel and says what they want there, then you're not at the mercy of whatever developer wants to come in and put the most, to make the most profit on it. We could do better for the community, I think, if we had more control. And that's my own personal feeling.
I do think that with the, since we own the site, I think we have a lot of control over what's built if the city wants to move forward. As the city as a developer is basically taking on all the responsibility for the infrastructure and going through a potential plan unit development plat. It's just complicated to say like where the city stops, but.
Yeah, I think that the amount of improved value you can get that way would pay for the cost of the staff development required to make this happen. Because if the city invests the money to put in the infrastructure, then you can sell the lots for a lot more money. And that's just my thought.
If the city was going to be acting as the developer, do you guys have the skill set to do it? Or would you have to hire someone to kind of guide you? It seems like it'd be a pretty
That's kind of
huge
that would be a
undertaking.
huge lift in terms of if we were to take this plan, we could work on certain aspects of it through our engineering department to make sure everything is designed and done correctly on large lots. The idea of like doing a PUD, a residential PUD, speculative, I don't know how you would almost have to say like everything, well, you could potentially do it, but you'd be guessing, right? You'd be making a lot of guesses, and then you're basically selling. The challenge with developing, I'll just say specifically what I've seen here in Lake Elmo, it's all corporate builders that we've worked with, and they're large builders that come in, and they want control of the entire site.
Sure.
I've worked in other places where you have small builders that will buy lots. It's pretty inefficient. It's good in some ways, but this would be, that would be a challenge to do that. I mean, if you're asking like where our capacity is, at the most, it would be, you know, setting the roads and the sewer and getting all that designed. But that's gonna take that's a lot of cost on the city, because Bolton and Mink would most likely do it, and they're an engineer and they're a contractor, right? So,
Yep, got it.
And to me, the basic and medium infrastructure scenarios seem fitting. I was gonna say, I like, it's impressive what outside developers can bring and the ideas they bring forward. We saw that with the old fire station. You get fresh perspective that, you know, within the confines of the city, we just don't have. So I like having some influence. That piggybacks on my question here. For all these parcels, are we looking at a process similar to what we ran for the old village? It's maybe a little bit looser than that?
I think it would be looser. I think that we would want to find a broker that we could work with.
Yeah.
And create a marketing plan on parcel one, based on what we've heard here, and agree to whatever is gonna be built after the community engagement process. Also work with getting the sewer under the tracks to set up that next developer to come in and extend the sewer where they need to extend it, where they think it makes, we'll have guidelines where it needs to go so it can connect to the north. But an RFP process, this is too big to say. I just,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's I think we could just open it up, market it, and hear from people in the next, 4 or 5 months, and just see what and then take that to council and kind of figure out what interest we're receiving on the site.
Yeah, understood.
There were a couple of things that clubbed me over the head. I sat through the presentation to council recently, and a few things of interest came out. And the first bucket that hit me over the head were all the things that the city has to do and step up and get done and pay for. In fact, they even made a suggestion that the property that the Public Works sits on is so valuable, maybe the city might want to consider moving it down to parcel 1, which I thought made a lot of sense. But there's a commitment, right there, and upfront, move. But, if you're going to go with their exciting plans here for the larger property up north, that's probably the thing to do, and make that use, part of a new development and not remain as Public Works. But then there's all the other infrastructure things you need to put in, and a lot of that infrastructure probably will vary depending upon which way you want to go. When I say which way you want to go, it was another comment that they made near the end that, and I couldn't look at these numbers and make sense of it, but the taxable benefit to the city is really not a lot different between an industrial development for the whole thing as opposed to the exciting development that has, all the bells and whistles up north. And I would think, that would make it a whole lot simpler. The one exception might be, do you have a business that wants a rail spur, and how is that gonna work? And what does the city have to do to prepare for that? I don't know. But going to the staffing issue, and that really does concern me, if we're going to do all of this work up front, that it might be simpler to go the all-industrial route. Doesn't bring in a lot of people. And in fact, the numbers that they pointed out saying, hey, the benefit to the city is about the same in both, and that doesn't include the extra costs of services, as you pointed out, that are likely to be a whole lot higher with the exciting development than it would be with the industrial. And I think about it, it would really be fun to see it developed big time up north, including moving Public Works down south. But it seems like it's, and maybe you'll learn differently in the next few months when you research, but that looks like it's something that this city couldn't handle.
Could not handle?
I don't think you could, you know, I don't think it's staffed to handle, and then, and not only that, but get the commitment for all the investment that needs to be done up front. They strongly encourage that you have the infrastructure there, so when you have a, you know, a builder, he can go right to work instead of waiting for the city to put in all the infrastructure.
So that came up with the, moving the Public Works building, and the finance, public finance person who works with the city basically said you need 25, 30 million just to move it. And then the idea of like, you're gonna make that back is gonna be very difficult. So,
Triple our annual budget.
so her recommendation was not to do that. We also heard from stakeholders that they really like the barn as a gateway. So as this idea of like a gateway to the city, they like seeing the water tower as like the sign with this barn. And I think, yeah, she seemed like it was just more cost and, you know, more money. You just need to find more money, right?
Oh.
So, you know,
Just, you know, and even if you keep it there, you're still gonna have to pay a lot of money up front for infrastructure.
Yeah, so
And,
just-
you know, I get really concerned that we've been biting off more than we can chew by having, that big time up north, development. And then comes the benefit, not only the extra cost, but that is so far away from downtown that if you bring in extra traffic and people for that area, who's gonna get the benefit of the extra traffic? Well, probably a lot of it go to Oakdale, you know. In fact, there was a comment made, the retail businesses in the Oakdale side are struggling, you know, so, you know, this might help, you know, ignite a lot more traffic there. And that's probably who would benefit. I don't see that extra traffic coming downtown. It's too long a drive, you know, and I just question whether it's worth it to bring a whole lot of extra population in a complex development if the industrial might be simpler and bring in similar tax benefit to the city.
just a couple points of clarification from our standpoint. Just the basic infrastructure, the number two makes the most sense for us, just talking to them, without discussing it with anyone else. The cost to run the sewer was estimated to be about 800,000. Public finance person was like, that's doable, right? That's something the city could do. The other thing too is, regardless of the staff capacity, how many people we have, we could still have areas guided for residential that are interesting, where we are not really involved in laying it out. We would not, our plan is not to lay out a planned unit development. What we could do is say, yes, this area is residential. And the other reason it's residential in here is to buffer the existing residential. But state, like, we want a traditional neighborhood development. We want a certain type of development. And you could put that out when you market it to make sure that this is what you want to see. And then you give that to certain people that can do that type of development. And those are the people you want to bring in and look at concepts with. So we would be following our same process that we would with any developer. But just to be clear, we could still have residential and not, you know, have to design it ourselves. We can just kind of put a framework around it.
Do we have enough flexibility in what we have currently in our codes where we would not need to look into a possible overlay for this site? And I guess I ask in terms of, and Don, I agree with a lot of what you said as well. I have very little interest in having residential, except for the fact that it is a buffer. And so this shows suggestions of possible housing stock. Do we have enough in there that it would be, that would work there to begin with? Or would we want to start going down the route of, we're just going to do an entire zoning overlay here with new use and new requirements that apply only to this spot in the entire city? Or would that also be?
I think we could do it without an overlay because we could make that a condition of the sale, right? So you have this area, we work on it, we kind of figure out what that overlay looks like. Instead of adding it to the zoning code, it's more or less like an RFP in a way, where you say, like, this is what we want to see on this site. And they would look at those requirements. And, you know, there are groups out there that do these traditional neighborhood developments. And you may not need the same units, right? So the units are over 200 in the apartments. Maybe you have more of the single-family small lot, because you get a lot of value out of that, and you can bring homeownership opportunities less than $500,000. So maybe that's something to consider. So, I
Gotcha.
don't think you need to actually adopt an overlay zone.
We have other tools in our toolkit that can serve the same function.
Well, in our stakeholder thing, people were saying how safe Lake Elmo is. So if you start to get these lower homes, you're gonna be bringing in a different, residents than we're used to. So there's that risk too.
I'd like to comment on Don's comment that if we go industrial, we will pay less to service the land as compared to residential. I think that makes really good sense. And the other thing is, if we did it in a phased way, and we started out with selling the easiest one first, then the money coming in from the sale of the land could be used to pay for infrastructure on the next parcel, rather than, because we're not in a hurry.
That-
You know,
that-
it's not like we have to have it all sold by the end of 2026. You know, we can move along in a phased way and figure, well, within 3 or 4 years, we'd sell all the land. But during that time, we could basically bootstrap the infrastructure development of the second parcel on the income from the first.
Yep, that was definitely discussed too. And I'm trying to find the slide with the dollar amount.
That's not a new idea, but that's definitely the idea of making it a phased growth rather than all at once.
And we know for sure that the settlement with 3M, we didn't codify any restrictions in any resolutions that we passed for how we shall use the dollars for the sale.
We've looked and no.
Okay,
Just that number is, their estimate is that it's 3.4 million. So that's more than enough to start the process of moving, bringing the sewer through parcel 2 and potentially under the road to parcel 3.
Yeah. And I don't want it to be lost on the retail commercial aspect of this. I'll stick up that frankly, like having this all industrial doesn't excite me. I'd be curious what the feedback is. Like you have some nice retail and being built up there on the Oakdale side, so to have an industrial park as soon as you enter Lake Elmo, I don't know. Say what you want about the residential, but I think some level of shopping, restaurants, commercial is important there and does present a gateway. Maybe it becomes more of a shopping district than a residential district. That excites me when I think about this and see it, and it excites me for the city, similar to what we saw in the old village. So I don't want that to be lost in the discussion here.
And one of the things I was thinking about too, like hearing everybody talk about the gateway, is maybe the other corner on the parcel 2 is a commercial use, right? It's not necessarily industrial, but.
Yeah,
where you
that
kind of-
also came to my mind as well. Yep.
do we have current plans for everything that Oakdale has platted over there? Because I know they're continuing, like, it's not just the Starbucks and the
All the.
Aldi's, and they're also putting in burritos.
Chipotle.
Chipotle.
Yeah.
But there's other businesses coming in as well, both on the north and south side. Like, are we staff, can we get updates as to what they have platted? Like, I've searched their site from time to time, but I haven't really put too much effort in.
Yeah, I'll reach back out to the community development director. We talked during this process. It seems speculative. We asked the panel to try to get more information on it too, because it's like, how can we leverage this? Where it's kind of interesting. People say, you're going to Lake Elmo, it's different, but we're thinking like, well, how's this one shopping area, whether it's Lake Elmo or Oakdale, it all kind of blends together. So that question was asked, but I don't think we got enough information. I think it is speculative at this point on that side.
I mean, there's the hypothetical that at that intersection, and I agree, I would prefer something that has a bit more diversity of options of the uses there. I don't like the idea of added service cost, but that would add diversity of uses. A person who's driving by, who's not a Lake Elmo or Oakdale resident, functionally may not see a difference between what is on the Lake Elmo side and the Oakdale side, depending upon how it plays out. I think that would be a missed opportunity to make sure that it is different in whatever way we say is the preferred way. And it's not because it's better or not, just this is the Lake Elmo side. We are it's different either architecturally or in the services being offered. So that was just my thought as to making sure we're not,
Mimicking them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any further comments on the plan? If not, I'd like to thank Community Director Stappa for the presentation, and good luck with this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So communications, updates, fire station, parks building, kind of give that update. We're just working through the appraisal, the survey, title work. They submitted a drawing. We're reviewing that for the parking lot. I don't know if there's anything else to really add there, but that's the process, and obviously environmental is we want to get that back. And then upcoming meeting days, do you know? if you
Yeah,
have-
upcoming meeting dates are going to be discussed at, or up at council after this, but the proposed dates as they stand now are 2/17, 4/7, 6/16, 8/18, 10/20, and 12/15. So hopefully we'll have those tonight, and I can send them out.
We might change them, we might not. You know,
The vibe is,
maybe have a February 14th meeting day and we'll all be in the doghouse.
Does anyone else have anything?
I wouldn't be.
I'm curious, how many of you, like, participated in the panel or that tap? I wasn't able to go. You all did? Okay, awesome.
It was
Glad to hear.
it was very interesting, very
Cool
interesting.
process. I learned some stuff I didn't know about, so it's cool.
I'm glad you all could join. I wanted to join, I think I was on vacation, so. sorry.
Well, and they definitely took into account feedback, because the group I was in, there's direct feedback that others in the group mentioned that is in that report. So I can say that for those who weren't there, like, they took it into account. That absolutely was incorporated.
Yeah, this process was very useful, I think, and we could even think about it for something like what to do with the old City Hall building, or whether it would make sense to try to find enough money to buy the Fury property. You know, what could be done if if you had to pay market value for it, what value would that be to the city? And so my impression of the TAP process was that it would be very helpful to use for other questions.
Glad we did it, yes. Thank you.
If there are no further comments, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.